So when it comes to Facebook lead generation, these are basically all the variables that you as a human being can control. First of all, you have your offer. I think it goes without saying that if your offer isn't good, if your offer doesn't make sense to the audience, if your offer isn't something that your customers are interested in, you're probably going to end up with 0 leads. But there is more to just having any standard offer. Obviously, if you haven't read $100 million Offers by Alex Hormozi, that's definitely worth a read. But as I'll show you, there's more to a Facebook ad than just an irresistible offer. Next up, we have our budget, and these are in no particular order. Now, your budget does matter. In my experience, I'm starting a lot of client campaigns with a minimum of $30 per day. This is so we can get at least 4,000 impressions over 4 days, and that will tell us with enough certainty that our ads are good or our ads are bad. Next up, we have our targeting. I wouldn't say this is something you should spend a lot of time on. I'm using broad targeting for 99% of new client campaigns, including my own and including our solo business. Next, we get into some interesting stuff, and we're going to call it our funnel. And that's whether we're using a lead form or a landing page. If you don't have a landing page and you don't know someone who can make a high converting landing page for you, then I would start with lead forms. The important part of lead forms is you would want to use what's called conditional logic to ask questions that would disqualify people who you cannot help. Very important. Over the last 2 weeks especially, I've heard a lot of people say that the leads they're getting from their lead forms aren't good quality. However, when I ask them what a minimum criteria is for a lead to meet in order for them to be a qualified lead, they can't actually tell me. So that tells me that there's been no filtering that has happened on the lead form, and that is the reason why leads are trash. But if you have a proven landing page, obviously you can use that. Now, this is where it gets really interesting. Now we start to talk about our creative. Now, creative for me is the image or the video and the copy. And we'll just include the headline in that copy as well. Now, really interesting point. Let's say you and your competitors are all running the same offer. Maybe you've copied your competitor's offer because you can see it works well for them. That's fine. And then you've got your daily budget, and then you've got your targeting. Let's just say you're using broad targeting. And then let's just say you've got your lead form or landing page. If you and your competitors all have similarities here, maybe they're spending more, but generally speaking, if you're spending at least $30 a day, you should be able to get a decent amount of results if these other points have a lot of thought put into them. And you've got your broad targeting, your competitors are probably using those as well. Maybe they're using a landing page, maybe they're using a lead form, whatever. What is the only lever here that you can pull quite heavily to achieve a better result than your competitors, or just a better result for your business? It is absolutely your creative. For those of you who are copying or replicating your competitors' ads, stop doing this. The reason being is you are constantly following. You are never leading. If you want to blend into a sea of sameness, copy everything your competitor's doing. I'm not bashing on those of you who are doing it and getting a good result. I think that's a good place to start. But if long-term you want your customers to know what your point of difference is and what makes you different from your competitors, you've got to break out of this as soon as possible. Now, where, as I mentioned, where this gets really interesting is the relationship between your creative and this funnel. Now, I would say for most of you who have used static image ads and run it to a lead form, I would dare say most of your results have been pretty average. For those of you who have run image ads to a landing page, I would say on average your results are a little bit better. Why is that? It's because on a landing page you can provide infinitely more context about the offer, who you're speaking to, all of those psychological points, right? This is probably the only time I'm going heavy on any static images, and even then I'm using the static images that I've formulated in specific ad types, like obvious ad types, us versus them ad types, statistical static image ad types, still static images that achieve cut through and differentiate your brand from competitors' ads. A video ad, however, can go to a lead form or a landing page. It is much more versatile. These videos aren't just any video. Again, you want to be using video ads that are much different to what all of your competitors are using. Things like a Skillshare ad type, things like testimonial ad types that I talk about on my social channels a lot. And then we've got our copy, and this is in close relation to images and videos as well. If you're running video ads and it's well scripted, you've scripted what you're going to say, it follows a proven structure, you can get away with short copy. If, however, you're running an image ad, especially to a lead form, this is where your copy probably wants to be a bit longer, more specifically, give more context. Those are your variables here. So we can safely probably rule out targeting as a variable that you should spend a lot of time on. on. I think we can safely rule out budget because at least if you're spending $30 per day, that's a bare minimum. I'm going to assume you've put a lot of effort into your offer and it's something that converts already. Most people already know this. I'm also going to assume that most of you haven't got a high converting landing page. For those of you that do, I'm sorry. And that leaves 4 variables here. 99% of the time, I'm using video ad types because I want to be able to get placements into Reels and Stories. So now majority of my ad types are videos, so that rules out image. Majority of the time, as I mentioned earlier, I'm probably going to be using short copy. So these are the 3 variables that I focus on predominantly when building a new campaign for a client who wants high quality leads. That is the lead form, the video ad type, and the copy. I honestly don't put that much effort into copy because the video ad types that we create do all of the heavy lifting. Now the lead form, you want to use something that's called Rich Creative. I have another video on this one. You can just send me a DM saying lead form and I'll send it to you. And that form is going to allow you to use what's called conditional logic. I'll just put CL for that one. So you can ask questions that would disqualify people who aren't a good fit for you to speak to. And a bunch of other wonderful aesthetic features of that lead form as opposed to using the default lead form that most people are using on Facebook. I wouldn't put that much effort into copy as I mentioned earlier. And so in conclusion, the variables that we can control are yes, all of these, but the variables that you should spend more time on and control are these 2, the lead form and video ad types that you select. If you haven't got access already, you can comment the word strategy below and I'll send you my social ad generator, which has over 12 video ad types that are proven for Facebook lead generation that will cut through the feed and differentiate your brand from competitors' ads. As well as that, I will send you my YouTube video link that will show you how to set up this Rich Creative lead form. So just comment the word strategy if you want that.